I wanted to show this clip from Tucker Carlson. It's a very short clip, and I wanted to get your reaction to it.
If you live in a society where the people in charge just want to sell you out to get rich, that's bad. But that's not what we're watching. We're watching something much darker than that. So the objective of, I would say, the entire administration and its enablers in the Republican Party, which is most elected officials there, is to destroy the United States, the recognizable United States, the country you grew up in, the country you've been living in, say, 10 years ago. And that's kind of obvious to everyone. But too few people pause and ask, well, what is that? Like, these people live here. They don't all have secret island getaways, especially now that Epstein is gone. And so if they succeed in their project of destroying the United States, where are they going to go? It's a little bit like burning your own house down. So why would you do that? That's not just an act of destruction, it's an act of self-destruction. So is that a political program? No. A political program is designed to help the people who institute it and their voters and donors. Their program helps nobody.
So I've been kind of developing my own theory on this, Alex, so if you remember a couple of weeks ago, Xi Jinping visited San Francisco. And if you've ever been to San Francisco, there's homeless people everywhere. Well, they cleaned that up for Xi Jinping to come there. And just like, so a couple of years ago, Gavin Newsom announced that there was a $40 billion surplus. You could put Alex up. There was a $40 billion surplus in California. And I was like, well, I bet he's going to clean up homelessness and he's going to give people health care. And they did nothing. They did nothing with that $40 billion. And now they're saying it's all gone. And I don't know. And no one knows where it went. And so we know that they could end homelessness in America for a fraction of the money that they sent to Ukraine at the blink of an eye.
And restart it and end it again.
That's right. They could have fixed it 4 or 5 times over. And they could have sent everybody to college for free. They won't do any of that. So I'm developing this theory that they're wanting us to be on edge, and they want us, just like Tucker had talked about it when he was on our show, they want you to, when you go to the 7-Eleven, you have to step over a homeless person and everything's locked up behind cages, and you're going to get a crazy person screaming at you so that you will welcome authoritarianism, right? Just like with the terrorist attack on 9/11 did, we became a surveillance state. People gave up their freedoms. By the way, the Patriot Act was on a shelf for years. They were waiting to implement that. And so people just forgot that every email, every text, every phone call they make is being recorded and categorized and collected by the government. And so I'm starting to develop this theory. They keep saying that Trump and Trumpers are going to start a civil war. The people starting a civil war are the corporate media, which are beholden to a handful of billionaires, which are beholden to no country. And it's like they want us fighting. They want us at each other's throats. They want homelessness here. That's why they won't fix it. They want everybody to be on edge and afraid. And that's what and they're wrecking the country. That's why the border's open for many reasons. But we'll talk about that in a second. But just go ahead and respond to what I said and what Tucker said.
Well, that's a profound clip by Tucker. I've heard him say similar things, but I hadn't seen that clip. And I really am an expert on this because I read the writings voluminously of kind of the high priest of these people that you all know are Hararis and folks. And so a lot goes into this. But at one level, you're 100% right, and there's some other levels to it, in my view. Klaus Schwab has said, we want an angrier world. So they want you to see dystopia and pain. It was declassified that since the 60s, the CIA wanted ugly art, ugly architecture, ugly culture, so that you would accept an uglier world and just get used to it and wouldn't demand beauty and wouldn't go along with people that wanted a better world because they were about to end the experiment of America with all its problems and all the issues. It was the wild, wild west, and people could come here. It was the best house in a bad neighborhood, and they could really aspire to be a maverick and to innovate. Every other place had shut down innovation because elites didn't want anything to challenge their monopoly of hegemonic control. That's why feudalism looks the same everywhere. You keep people on tiny pieces of land in every culture, in Japan, ancient Europe, you name it. The nobles were a foot or two higher than the serfs because they'd been kept at starvation levels for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's a management system to keep people dumb and poor. Like the famous comedian George Carlin said, they want you dumb, they want you stupid, and just passive enough to do the work until you retire, and then they can steal your pension. And so now, with robots and all the rest of this stuff, they don't even need people. Life was always cheap. Now it's seen as we're eating up their resources. So they don't want the world to aspire to a 2-car garage and a vacation and healthcare and a small swimming pool in the backyard and access to medical care. With all this technology and all this science, we should be working. They have all the actuaries 2-3 days a week, living like kings. But instead, they set up legal systems and corporate systems and tax systems that tax the middle class and the poor, give people benefits only for the social controls that come out of it, so they can manage us as serfs. But then it gets worse. If you talk to, when I've covered Bilderberg myself more than 10 times, my crew many other times, we get into the hotel a few days before they close it, and I hand out a card and I say, when the Bilderberg group comes here to the waiters and to the staff and to the bartender, to the bellhop, when they come here and you see how rude and evil and mean they are, and you hear what they're saying, here's my phone number, call me and give me information. If you get any papers or things they throw in the trash, give them to me. I learned that from Jim Tucker, an old reporter that had been covering him since the 70s. And he's dead now, but he was a really interesting, old-fashioned gumshoe. And so they would then be so rude and so mean and never give a 1-cent tip. None of them give tips. Hillary Clinton at a restaurant gives no tip. A lot of times skips out on it. And they're all like this. Gavin Newsom, I've told people that know him, they're all like this because they are such sociopaths / psychopathic. They're all on that scale that to them, they don't understand doing good to others comes back to you. They don't get that if they crap in the swimming pool, they've got to close the community pool because they're so rich and powerful, they're disconnected from ever being in a community pool. So they feel so insulated and so disdainful, but deep down, even though their consciousness is evil, their body, even their genetics still has the old human there. So they subconsciously hate themselves. So they then project onto the public their own self-loathing. And I've talked to top psychiatrists about psychopaths and serial killers. They only feel alive when they're doing something bad or being nasty. And if they do anything nice, they are so hyper-competitive that they feel like they're being cheated. So they're doing all these destructive things. What are their trillions in stolen money going to do when there's a nuclear war? What's it going to do when there's no nice city to go spend the money in? So consciously they go, yeah, we'll dumb everybody down and make them stupid and poor to control them, but they're not even conscious enough to go, that'll blow back, because they have such little humanity, they can't even understand that basic thing. Yeah, be hard in business, be serious. Don't let folks push you around, but also realize you've got to not just give a homeless person $10, you've got to create a culture and a society that has things to aspire to and honor and competition, to where people are brought up to believe in something. But if you believe in something good, you'll become a high-functioning, successful person in your hierarchy of needs. And the final hierarchy, after food and sustenance and medical and family, is helping others and being a pillar, because you are connected to everybody. I'm not a collectivist in government makes you collective and makes us collective. No, we are collectivist creatures. We're a hive creature, but through individual determination, making the best decisions and proving what works best, we then collectively opt into the best system and the best collective mode. We still own things, we still have privacy, but it's because we collectively agree on what's good. They want a system that's tyrannical and centralized out of pure avarice and selfishness and greed at a overdriving level. And so they are completely against the very civilization that has made them fabulously rich and powerful as parasites. If cancer had a consciousness, it would say, I better not kill the body, I better just stay this size because I'll die. But cancer doesn't have a consciousness. If it had a consciousness, it would be thinking, I'm all powerful. I can't be stopped. Look at me. I'm taking over the brain, the lungs, the bones, the blood. I'm taking over the skin. but the whole thing dies. So they're like a conscious cancer that doesn't care it's destroying the host. And so they don't have that connectiveness with us. And so that's why they are the plague. And that's why humanity goes through cycles. We all know that. We're in a major turning right now, the fourth turning. And the globalists know that, so they want complete control and power because they know their old system's about to die. They want to have the Great Reset that I cover in my book, The Great Awakening, that's already a bestseller, to have even greater tyranny out of the collapse of their old parasitic financial system. And so we're now at that point where they're trying to double down instead of in the cycle. Hard times make strong men make good times make weak men make bad times, and then bad times make strong men. Obama and others call it the end of history, and they want such a scientific, factory-farmed, dumbed-down population that they even allow to be around. They want 500 million, that's official number, so they want to get rid of 7.5 billion people, and they want factory-farmed people that they mind control, they read the thoughts of, they control the thoughts of and the dreams of, so they can play God. This is the dystopic, mad scientist hell they're building, and that's why they're at war against the natural order, because the natural order isn't conducive to the cancer taking over.
And so, would you define who, when you say they, how do you define they? Who is the they?
There are sociopaths and psychopaths in the Chinese government and corporations. There are sociopaths and psychopaths in the German government. There are sociopaths and psychopaths in the U.S. government. There are sociopaths and psychopaths in the Israeli government. There are sociopaths and psychopaths in the Russian government. But they've already been through 80 plus years of this, so they're in many ways having a renaissance and trying to get away from it. Whereas we haven't fully gone to the bottom yet, so we're going deeper into it. But if you want to know who runs it, BlackRock is, you know this, you've covered it. BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, all controlled by the same group of less than a dozen managers, control 88% of world assets and wealth. And they've said, we'll use this to control people. They want to cut off our resources. They're saying, we can't take showers or wash our clothes. And Obama told Africans you can't have a car or air conditioning, but he can have jumbo jets and, palatial, things, all over the place. And so it's a religion of do as I say, not as I do. I'm an anointed one. I'm a priest class. I rule over you. You're a serf. You have nothing. And we know who runs it. The handful of families and groups that control BlackRock, just like you mentioned, network, is their revelation of the method. They're telling you right there. They have a plan for humanity. They want to just dumb us down and brush us aside. And then they control the defense contractors, big pharma. They bring up the politicians they control. They penetrate the cabinets, as Klaus Schwab said. The WEF's just their spokesperson group. It's just their PR firm. And they have stolen the world's wealth, and they believe it's owned by them. And they believe, like when you go into your pantry to get some flour and there's weevils in it, you kill the weevils. And then they see us as just, they say this. There's too many people. We got to get rid of them. We don't need all these humans anymore. Well, we don't need you, Klaus Schwab, or Yuval Noah Harari. And then so people say, well, is it this conspiracy or is it that group? Klaus Schwab's family were Nazis. Yuval Harari's weren't. Xi Jinping helped round up his own family in the Cultural Revolution and watches his father and family were attacked and his sister was tortured. He agreed with it. So he was rewarded by the parasitic system to be the leader of the country and a dictator, to serve that ruling communist oligarchy, because he literally stood by while his father was pilloried in the town square and while his sister was beaten to death. And so he's so committed to the party, he was rewarded in the top slot. And so he's just a manifestation. So if you look at the brain of a Henry Kissinger and the brain of a Zbigniew Brzezinski, one is Chinese, one is Jewish. Or the mind of Adolf Hitler. Hitler said everybody else is weak and dumb, survival of the fittest, social Darwinism. We're going to kill everybody that doesn't go along with us, and some will be left as slaves, but really we'll get rid of them later. And people say, well, why is Yuval Noah Harari saying we don't need humans, it's time to get rid of people, the future's not human? Hitler just said the future isn't anybody but an Aryan, which is bad enough. Yuval Noah Harari says the future ain't even human. That's a quote. He says humans are gone by 2047. And you can read NBC headlines, the same thing. A New York Times headlines, looking forward to the end of humanity. I'm in the grocery store checkout lane, saw a similar headline last week. It's telling you, you're garbage, you're filth, you killed the earth, don't have a life force, don't have a survival instinct, you're killing everything. Look at the garbage, look at the homeless, look at the everything. Die, roll over, don't live, don't thrive, don't contend for the future, don't affect the future, because we have the Renaissance system of believing in humans and egalitarianism and classical liberalism and really empowering people, but doing it through the classical human system. That's the great awakening that we're in, that's countering the Great Reset, the war against the globalists, defeating the globalists and launching the next great Renaissance. And they can't compete with that. They are a evil, stinking witch that's literally trying to hand out poison apples versus Marilyn Monroe in their prime. Freedom in the Renaissance and liberalism, real liberalism, is Marilyn Monroe in her prime. And the New World Order is like a Skeksis from the Dark Crystal. They have to make everything ugly because they're ugly spiritually, culturally, metaphysically, and they need everything ugly to camouflage themselves because they're so fallen.
So I just learned recently that the AP, the news service, the AP, the owners of the AP, is it the Rothschilds?
They own a lot of stuff through BlackRock. They also own The Economist magazine. And yeah, the Rothschilds, that's a whole other story. I'm sure you know it. But the British Empire was dominant until 1815. But it was in complete control for 100 years after that because the Battle of Waterloo was so decisive, defeating the continental forces of Napoleon Bonaparte for the second time with the Prussian British pincer attack, that the Rothschilds, this is on record, sent a carrier pigeon to a fast Corvette ship to race across and to tell everyone when the stock market opened that morning that Napoleon had won and that Lord Wellington had been smashed. And the stock market went down 99%. The Rothschilds then bought up 99%, this is on record, 99% of the stock market. So they weren't just the richest family in the world up until that point. They were the richest family in the world up until that point on record. Okay? Married into the British royalty, everything. Then after 1815, the Battle of Waterloo, they owned the British Empire. All the major stocks, they got it. Of course, Napoleon really lost. And they only had 6 hours. 6 hours before they came in and said, no, Wellington has won. Wellington has won, and then it all shot back up above where it even was. So look for them to do this again with a cyber attack. They're saying Trump supporters with no evidence, working with Putin, are going to cyber attack to cancel the election. The election, he's 10 points ahead in or more. So yeah, they'll use major crises and calamities to consolidate power. And the Anglo-American establishment, there's a tripolar world. There's the Russians, who are the junior. There are the Chinese that are the middle group. The Anglo-American British Empire that Carol Quigley, Bill Clinton's mentor, wrote an 1,100-page book bragging about, from their perspective, their right to rule, how they were going to take over the world. In 1967, he wrote it. And so Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote books admitting this. They all admit this at the academic level like we're dumb animals. I'm just reading what they're actually saying. And they, in mainline PhD history books, they admit all this about the Rothschilds. Now, I go on air and say it, they go, oh, anti-Semitic. It has nothing to do with Jews to say that the Rothschilds did this and are super powerful, or the Chinese, because Xi Jinping is bad. Am I saying Chinese are bad? No, I'm not. But it really is true that that's how a German Jewish banking family who ran pawn shops basically in Germany and loaned money to people, that's how they parlayed their wealth from 500 years ago by 1815 to rule most of the earth. The sun never set on the British Empire. Then World War I, the Austro-Hungarian Empire had gotten so dominant, I don't mean to give a history lesson, but it's important to know, that the British intelligence of the Black Hand assassinate Franz Ferdinand, the Archduke. The Germans all go crazy because they were winning with all the new patents, all the new science. The British newspapers were talking about the German problem, and they're going to. So the British Empire was corrupt, overextended, and so World War I was started by them. World War II was Hitler; he was bad, but the Versailles Treaty and all that led to Hitler coming to power. There's a lot of evidence British intelligence didn't control Hitler, but nudged him and funded him early on to have a new enemy. And so that's really how this world has been operating. It's how it's been done. And so after World War I, the British Empire made a deal, and even Teddy Roosevelt wrote about this. It was Winston Churchill wrote the 3-volume set, The Histories of the British-Speaking Peoples.
Yeah.
He was half American. He says in there, we came over after World War I, we set up the CFR, we merged British intelligence with U.S. intelligence.
Right.
And then that is the Anglo-American Empire. They call it themselves. And Putin says, I'm fighting the Anglo-American elite.
Yep.
I have no problems with the Americans. He said, I have a problem with your Anglo-American oligarchs. He calls us the Anglo-Americans. And who are they? The Anglo-Americans come from a Norse tribe that later became William the Conqueror and took over France. And they came and took over England. So if you go back to all of this, they take the name of William the Conqueror's group from 1,000 years ago.
Alex, have you seen it is unbelievable if you ever see it. There's a movie about the Rothschilds that's black and white that's made by them to promote them, and it looks like something Hitler made to smear them. And it's their thing bragging about their family history. It's unbelievable.
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. Keep in mind, they made it themselves. Isn't this great? And you're like, it's crazy if you find it.
Come see us do a live stand-up show. We'll be in Venice, California, Palmdale, California, Omaha, Des Moines, Milwaukee, Lansing, Bend, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Boston, Massachusetts, and we're going to Europe. Do you live in Europe? We're going to be there. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.